Hello. Hey everyone. We're about to start, so please have a seat and get yourself Can you hear me? Hello? Can everyone hear me? Yes. Okay. We are about to start soon, so please take a seat and make yourself comfortable. Yeah. Welcome to Melbourne CocoaHeads number 131. Yeah. My name is Nabila, and I will be the MC for tonight. For those who don't know me, I'm actually working at Innovative Apps as one of the junior iOS staff. Yeah, go to the next slide. What? Oh, the animation's still playing. Yeah, welcome. Yeah, please bear with me, guys. I actually didn't make this presentation originally, and I didn't know there was a lot of animations playing. Okay, so I'll go through the program for tonight. So I'll be doing 10 minutes introduction, and then we'll have our first presentation by Mike Monahan. It's about programmer's guide to DIY videos for App Store. Second presentation will be about recommendation at Redbubble by Carl and Zoe. Then we'll have around 15 minutes sorry, it's not 15, it's 10 minutes break, and this is the chance for you to go have toilet break, get some drinks or more pizza. Lastly, we have our lightning talk by Fignesh. It's about UI testing in iOS. Then we'll have some discussion and wrap up. And for those who still want to continue socializing and get more drinks, some of us will go to the Brick Street Green. So it's actually the bar that is just across this building on the other side. It's on RACF building. Hugh is here tonight. Hugh, can you refill yourself? So Hugh will be the person who leads the drinks train. So if you don't know how to get there and who to go with, just follow Hugh. Yeah, for this month and next month, we'll have some upcoming events. So firstly, we have Hack Night. It will be happening on 20th of November, so it's next Wednesday at Cognizant. And other than that, we also have Drinks Night happening on 26th of November, so it's the week after, following week. It will be happening at Captain Melville. For those who don't know, what's the difference between Hack Night and Drinks Night? So during Hack Night, there's no alcohol at all. People can bring their own personal project to work with and get some help from other people in the community. And Drinks Night is mainly focused on socializing. So you don't need to bring your laptop. Just bring yourself and grab some beers. We also have NS Breakfast on 2nd of December. It's happening in the morning. It's not at night. It's at 7:30 to 9:30 a.m. Ed is Ed here. Yeah, Ed, would you be able to explain about what is NS Breakfast? Show yourself to the audience.
I think there are lots of other people who are far better at explaining NS Breakfast than I do. So Audrey, Marius, if he's here, and in the back. But basically, we just get together, have breakfast, have coffee, and talk about life. And maybe some technology.
Yeah. And for next month, December, we have our last CocoaHeads meetup event, which is happening on 12th of December between 6 p.m. and 8:30. This is going to be very interesting because in this meetup, we'll be combining with Google Developers Group Meetup. And it's going to be a Christmas party as well. So yeah, if you're still around in Melbourne, you should definitely go. If you are interested to see or know more about our upcoming events, just go to our meetup page, Melbourne CocoaHeads, or you can also look at GDG Melbourne, because we also do some hack night and joint meetup together, like the upcoming one in December. Yeah, and I'm going to tell you about some housekeeping stuff. This is very important, especially for people who just come here for the first time and never been in this building. First is toilet. So if you want to go to toilet, so you just go out, turn left towards the entrance of the building, and you'll see a sign, and then you just turn right again. You'll know what I mean when you see the sign. And then in case of emergency, the emergency exit is actually the entrance that we use to go here. So in case if the building is on fire, if there's some earthquake, you know where to go. And lastly, we'll be taking some photos, and this event is actually recorded as well. If you're not comfortable to be in the photo or in the video, please let us know. Oh, yeah. So has anyone shipped anything for the month and would like to share? It's very quiet. Is it because everyone's in their holiday mood already? Come on. It's just November. Hey, Nathan.
Hi, I'm Nathan, iOS developer at GrowthOps. We shipped the Movember app probably about a month ago. So I'm not sure how many people are participating here, but if you're not, it'd be really great if you checked out the app and donated to @movember.com.
It's amazing. Yeah, Movember app. I knew lots of people are growing their facial hair for the cows, but unfortunately I can't grow mine. But what I can do is just donate my money to my friends who are doing it. And anyone else? Okay, it's very quiet. Just one person shipped something. Oh, come on. Yeah, is anyone hiring or looking for work? So, Vignesh.
Hey everyone, my name is Vignesh. I'm currently looking for a junior iOS developer role or automation engineering role.
Anyone else looking to hire people? Okay, Stu.
This is just my standard thing that I think we're always hiring. I'm not sure of the exact roles, but have a look on the I work for REA, realestate.com.au. Have a look at the website. And if there's no jobs on the website, but you are interested, come and talk to me, because I feel like there's jobs that aren't on the website as well. So we are looking for lots of different roles, but we have open iOS developer roles at the moment at a range of levels. And we're hiring Android somewhere else. And if you don't do mobile at all, but you still came to this meetup, we're also hiring those roles.
Okay, that's great. Oh, sorry, I missed that.
Company I've done some freelance work for, and I'm on another contract, and they've now got a bit more funding and need some more work, is the guys at Hyper. If you look in the jobs channel in the CocoaHeads Slack, they're looking for a freelancer at the moment, that will hopefully turn into full-time work. But if you're interested, please go to the jobs channel and have it message Sasha. You'll get to take over some of my horrible code, but it's all pretty self-explanatory, and it's a pretty cool company and pretty interesting work.
Okay, yeah, so if anyone wants to post any job vacancy or looking for work, you can go to Melbourne CocoaHeads channel. We have a channel called #jobs, and you can check it out there. Come on, yeah, there it is. All right. So code of conduct. We have a code of conduct in Melbourne CocoaHeads. That's because we want to build a comfortable environment where everybody feels safe and welcome. This is why it's very important to us. That's why we have code of conduct. So if you're being harassed, and if you notice that someone else in an uncomfortable situation or have any other concerns, please reach out to us. You can contact us by, if you see anyone with the red dot stickers, that means they are the organizers. So reach out to me or even Sean, the organizers for tonight. Or you can also send an anonymous form or report on that link or email as well. So yeah, questions, regarding questions. So starting this year, Melbourne CocoaHeads do not have any Q&A session after every presentation. So if you do have any questions about the presentation or you want to ask something else to the presenter, you can do that during the break. It'll be offline. The reason why we do that, so it'll be easier on the speakers, so they don't feel intimidated when they are being asked on the spot in front of everyone. And it also makes the evening flow better, so we can always run our sessions on time. And you probably have noticed that some people have blue stickers and some people have red stickers, and you don't know what that is. So red stickers are for people who organize the event for tonight. And if you do have any questions, if you need some help, always reach out to us. And blue stickers are for people who are new to the community or their first time coming to Melbourne CocoaHeads. Please make them feel welcome and say hi to them. And volunteers. Melbourne CocoaHeads are always on the hunt for volunteers. And as a volunteer, you can do, these are some of the roles that you can do. You can help manage our meetup page, open PR to the website, so basically update our website, be an MC, just like what I'm doing now, and also be a mentor, and help with the setup of the room. Some of the roles that you can do that is not listed on this slide is you can also be the door greeter, set up the AV, and order the pizzas and beers as well. Yeah, and if you're interested in volunteering, please go to #volunteers channel on Slack. And if you are interested to submit a presentation for the night, go to our Slack channel, or you can also go to that website, melbournecocoaheads.com/talks. We always welcome juniors, so we really encourage juniors to do their presentation as well. I know that it can be very scary or intimidating if you never do any talks in your life. So we always reserve one slot for each month, and we also provide some mentorship if it's your first time talking in the public. We have some volunteers here who can train you to do so. Yeah, before I continue, this week we actually have a meeting about Melbourne CocoaHeads future, and Sean, our main organizer for tonight, would like to have some announcement or talk about it.
G'day everybody. Yeah, just to recap, we had a meeting on Monday night, which is basically planning for next year. These events wouldn't happen if we didn't have volunteers like Nabila and Renaud and a whole cast of other people who come out and sort of make these things happen. So really like to encourage people to step up. You know, I think we all get a lot out of the community, whether you've come here to see a talk, hired somebody from CocoaHeads, or got a job through the community as well. We all have a role to play. So if you can help out, we'd really appreciate it. Like Nabila said, jump on the volunteers channel on Slack, and that's how you can sort of get hooked up with the rest of the crew. Cheers.
Yeah. Thank you, Sean. And without our sponsors, this meetup will not happen. So we would like to thank our major sponsor, Cognizant. And our silver sponsors, Latitude Financial, Itty Bitty Apps, and also Domestic Cat. And lastly, our Fanny sponsor, YBF Ventures. Yeah, we're going to start our presentation soon. So our first presentation will be by Mike Monahan, and it will be about a programmer's guide for DIY app store video. So a little bit info about Mike. By day, he's an enterprise IT dude, and by night, he's an indie app developer. First sale, App Store sales was on 13 November 2008, so that's 11 years experience with App Store. Yeah, so please welcome Mike.
Yeah. Hi everybody, sorry I'm a bit distracted, just get the video going. There we go. Right, so this video, this presentation, sorry, was really inspired by about maybe 6 months ago. I think the App Store videos came along and did a presentation, and their product was really great about creating really good looking videos for App Store promotion, that sort of thing. But I kind of, when I watched it, I sort of felt, well, there's actually another market that maybe they weren't addressing. So this talk is really about those people. So the alternative title for really this video is for developers with a really limited budget, have a niche app that's never likely to make any money. So in that case, getting an App Store video, it feels like a big investment. So this is essentially a do-it-yourself guide as to some of the concepts about making an App Store video. It's things that I've trawled off blogs, it's things that I've experimented with, and anyway, I hope you enjoy it. So there's the main structure, just planning a video, doing the production of the video, and then some tips and advice along the way. So why, who, what, where, and when? Well, we know it's now, so that's why we've got that. So the why. So you create App Store videos basically to help promote your application. It creates a better presence. It makes it entices customers to be able to look at it, say, I want to install it, I want to download it, I want to play with it. So ideally at the end of that, you may be able to get some more dollars as well. Yep. The who. So talking to the audience, right? That's another important thing. So you've built an app and you know your audience. Well, you should try to learn your audience. You have to work it out. What's their backgrounds? What are they interested in? What's their terminal? Maybe what's their education? Where have they been? What do they call things, right? So getting all those sorts of things together, you just write it down on a pad and just get some sort of background so that you sort of know what sort of audience you're talking to. Yeah? There's no use telling some of these caravanners sitting around a circle at a campfire telling them about TikTok because they may not know exactly what that means, right? So talk to the audience. Okay, so the where. So there's probably, the main place is the App Store. Okay, so the App Store, it's a pretty constrained environment. You've got 30 seconds to get across a message. You may have 3 videos and you're competing for people's attention. So you've got to get in there very fast and very quick. Some of the impact that comes with it is, depending if you build your app for an iPad or an iPhone, then it's how many versions of the video you need to produce, right? So the workload really goes up and up. And if you take localization into account, it really goes up and up. So working out how many videos you actually want to produce and how you want to produce them is really important too. YouTube is another thing. I'll talk about a little bit later what YouTube means if you're producing a video for YouTube. It's a really good way to get discovery, but the different creates some interesting challenges for you as well. Okay, the other thing is you don't have to build an App Store video just as an App Store video. So you can use it for a tutorial, user guides, those sorts of purposes as well. So as you're planning and thinking of that material, you're getting a lot of this sort of lot of assets that you can reuse for in other purposes. So maybe think about where else you can go on your website, go onto YouTube to get better discovery, different purposes. Yep. And the what? Okay, so the what is really about the thinking about what do you want to show in your App Store videos. So everyone knows about the hot dog app. It's got a product statement. I embellished it a little bit. It helps people who are perhaps a little bit inebriated to identify food with a camera, just in case you're not too sure if you should eat it or not. All right. So the product statement is really key because it really breaks down to my app does something for somebody with these sorts of features. And that's what you want to get across. Yeah. So there's an example. This is my app, Level Remote. It helps caravanners level their van without leaving the driver's seat. Yeah. So that's who the audience is, what it does, and why it benefits them. Yep. That's really what you want to get to. So getting that product statement and working out those features is really key because that's what your App Store video is all about. It's really about showing what the features of your app, how it actually solves a particular problem. Yep. Okay, so what in 30 seconds? So this is the problem that you're going to compete with. When you actually start doing it, 30 seconds is actually a godsend because it lets you focus what you need to do and not try to generate everything, yeah? So you've only got 30 seconds to create a scene, do the setup, tell someone what they're looking at, tell someone what they need to do to use your feature and see how the benefit comes through to them, right? So if you think of it like a little budget, you've got 30 seconds, break it up into 3 features, you've got 10 seconds for each feature, and that's what you've got to communicate. Yeah? Okay, so here are a couple of apps that I just picked out, completely at random order, and they do different things. They show this application is showing lots of animations, lots of stuff going on. Yep. And what you really need to do, apart from a calendar, it doesn't really give you much of a hint of what the application's kind of doing or what you're getting out of it. So you really have to sit there and watch it for a long period of time to understand. This other app is much clearer. It introduces exactly what the feature is, and that's a little demonstration of how it works and what the benefit of that is. Photography is really great for it. You see it and you get it, yeah? Here's another app. It doesn't have to really use things because you can sort of understand pretty easily. It's talking about fitness, yeah? Okay, so, but it does have little introductions at different stages to tell you what those features that you're looking at are, yeah? And it shows you those as you go through. And I've got one more. This is my app. This one's really in your face about introducing what you're going to see, and it puts little chapters in there to tell you exactly what you're going to see and how that feature works, yeah? So it's just a way of structuring things, right? It might work for you or your app, it might be different. But the concept of getting an introduction and then showing what the behaviour is really important. So here, there's not much animation going on, but you see those little touch markers where the finger is touching different points, right? I'll touch on that a bit later on. Terrible pun. But it's really important that people understand what they're seeing, right? Because you show a screen to somebody that hasn't seen that screen before, your brain has to work really hard to work out what it is. If it's something familiar to you, you know it instantly. But if you're selling an app which solves a new problem or a different way of doing it, it's a lot to take in. So you actually have to guide the user, tell them what you're about to tell them about, show them it, and then show them the benefit. Yeah? Okay. So this is the sort of structure of a way to think of it. You've got the setup, the action, and the result. Yeah? So you might have a list of tasks, you find a priority to complete it, and you have cleared the task, right? So that's very a matter of fact. Here's a problem, here's what I do, here's the result for me. Another way that you might think of it as well is a bit more like the feeling that you have, right? So here, I feel out of control. I've got all these tasks, yeah? I start to gain control by finding the thing that's the high priority and swiping it, and then the content and the satisfaction of not letting somebody down, right? Okay, so that's a different way of looking at it. So when you look at your app, you look at it from those sorts of lens. What are the features that I have? What do they do for people? How would people feel when they use those apps? And these are the sorts of things that if you think them through, then you can kind of better think, well, that's how I can present my app. That's how I can present the real great features of my app, yeah? And you work out what's really important. Okay, the production process. There's the easy 6-step points. So first is the concept. So taking a movie metaphor, it's like you've got the concept of the book, yeah? That's pretty much your app, what it does, the features. Then you can build a screenplay, build the sets, set up the camera, filming, editing, and sound, okay? So in our example here, here's the concept. That's the feature. That's what you want to show in your application, yeah? The next thing is create a screenplay. You can do storyboards or whatever, but it's really you've got an idea of my app is really easy at managing these tasks or noticing a hot dog, but how does the user actually do those? What would I show the user on that screen, what they're doing and what comes out of it, right? So you could sit down and just write in here, here's a quick thing of the features that you want to show, and here's the steps that you might use to achieve it. If you write your own script, the thought process of writing it down helps you focus on what you're doing, yeah? Because when you're doing your own video, the real cost is your time. So the less you think about it and plan it, it's just like code. You go in, write some code, you haven't thought it through, delete it all, start again, yeah? So that same process, write it down, it helps you focus, helps you work out what's important to show. So the next thing is, a bit of advice is building sets, okay? So when you're showing an application, you usually have some data, it has some content, it has photos, it has tasks, those sorts of things. That content really goes into your app and makes your app personalised to people, right? So that content talks to your audiences. So what you want to do is spend a bit of time actually building the set, right? Apple does it all the time. Every time you open up, you just look at pages, you go, wow, how did someone write a document that looked that good to invite people to a 3-year-old concert, right? But that's what they spend their time on, yeah? So building the sets is very important because it really is the way you show your app how beautiful it is, right? They've always got beautiful people in all those photos. So the features are the scenes, the sets is your content, and your app. Yeah? Okay, so building sets with a robot. So one little piece of advice is building content and setting it up in your app. Doing it once is fun, yeah. Doing it 100 times is a little bit tedious, okay? So if you can build your data with a robot or a script at the startup or put into your development cycle, pass a flag and say create test data, it just makes so much things easier. It helps you in testing, but it helps you in recording because every time you stuff it up and you have to go back to the start again, your data's there ready to go again. So if you're able to get good images, good data, you can store databases, different ways to initialize it, but it will save you oodles of time. Okay, setting up the camera. Okay, so for App Store videos, you either got portrait or landscape, and you're either an iPad or an iPhone application. So if you're doing an iPad application, you're going to have to record your iPad, and if it's an iPhone application, you're going to have to record that. And if you want 5.5 inch and 6.5 inch, you're going to have to do those variations as well. At a minimum, if you build an iPhone, you can probably get away with just a 5.5 inch movie. You don't have to build the other versions. So probably the advice is do the first one, get the 5.5 inch, get it out there in the App Store and see how it goes. Yeah? When you do it for YouTube, it is a really interesting change, all right? So the frame does not match how the app works anymore, right? So you've got a 16.9 ratio. So in the layout, you're going to find that your phone is scaled. It's really tiny, yeah? if you've got any text or writing is important to you, you're not going to be able to read it. So one of the things is you need to consider, if it's an iPhone app in landscape, it'll be okay. But if it's an app in portrait, you're probably going to have to do some effects like scrolling and zooming to show all the app in enough detail. So when you're planning for that video, if you're thinking of going to YouTube, think about that's the sort of editing you might have to do afterwards. Okay. All right, filming. Okay, so there's a few recording options. You can record on device or you can record on simulator. Honestly, the simulator is, if you can get away with it, you can keep on doing those cycles over and over again. The other thing is keep the camera rolling, okay? So if you hit the record option and you do a take, yeah? You might sit there and say, I screwed up, hang on, I'll stop and I'll start recording. Don't do that, just keep recording again, okay? Because you can always cut out all the bloopers later on, yeah? But if you keep the camera rolling, you keep in your mindset of what you're working on and just keep on doing it, right? And this is a great one. Never try to do a voiceover at the same time as while you're trying to remember what the script says and which button to press, right? It's never going to work. So get the action and then you work out your voiceover later on. Okay, editing recording tools. So there's a few around. I really admit I've used Screenium a little bit, Final Cut Pro and ScreenFlow. The other guys I haven't really tried. I did give it a go with iMovie, yep. Probably my recommendation is ScreenFlow is probably one of the better ones. I'm not being paid by ScreenFlow, but if they'd like to send money, please do. All right, but I'll talk about some of the features. So some of the editing features that you want to have in an application. First, it's the non-linear editing. So anyone who's used iMovie knows non-linear editing. You want to be able to speed up and slow down clips, because that's one of those things that you do. Every now and then you'll need to just slow something down just a little bit or speed it up just to fit in the time, right? So you need those sorts of things. Applying pans and zooms, so that's when you're zooming into the action or you're scrolling it around. That's very important if you've got a YouTube video. You need to have that so that text is readable and you can have it rendered properly. Video callouts, so that's another technique used in some apps. It kind of like highlights areas of the app, sort of like puts a shadow on parts of the application, just highlights particular fields or whatever. Probably better for tutorial videos, but that's a great feature. Basic animations you might find you'll need, because sometimes your app doesn't look as best, so you can add a little basic animation to add a little bit of spice to it, yeah? It's not really cheating, it's just exaggerating your benefits of your application, right? Also text-to-speech annotations, and I'll talk about those in a sec. So special effects. So one thing that is really important is if your app is kind of not really heavily animated, the connection between action and response is really hard to tell in a video because you can't see the finger, right? So being able to show touches is really important. So where did I touch and why did the application change its behaviour? So one of those videos it has. The thing that I've used lately is GS Touches showing Windows.Swift. It's a little library you can add in. It's just about, I think it's 3 or 4 Swift modules that you throw in. it lets you turn on touches. So in your application, it'll actually show nice little touches all over the application. You can have it set up in your debug so that when it's released, it's turned off. Yep. I made a little fork to it. It's up there, and it lets you change the colour as well. So there's a few little settings to toggle it on and off. So that way you can actually have, in a development mode, you have it set up a menu, turn on the touches, be able to record the video and then turn it off. Yep. And also you want to change the colour because not everything works with a blue touch button. So you maybe need red or green, depends on the colours of your app. Yep. Back in the early days, I used phone finger. So one of my YouTube videos had a huge finger moving around pressing. We were all doing crazy things then. Big tip, don't do any post add touches. It is really slow, it is really tedious. Doing drags, you can do it, but it just takes so much time, and if you ever have to re-record the video, you got to do all the touches again. So honestly, that GS Touches showing window Swift, great stuff. Editing effects. So you might want to find some extra editing effects. So this little animation here. That's my little logo thing. That was all done in that ScreenFlow, just using circles, rectangles, and a bit of animation with a timeline. You can actually make that effect without going into any big applications. You can also do other little stuff like things moving around, little blips, radars, all those sorts of things. So a couple of those basic effects lets you supplement your application with just the sort of things you need. You might want to move a little window around just to help the user think, oh yeah, okay, that's how my app works. Jump out of the screen a little bit. Some more editing tips. So you know your timeline, right? That's one of those things. You set that budget to 30 seconds, yeah? So when you're recording your video, you know what you're going for, you know what you're aiming for. So you sort of lay it out. Get all your film in there and try to chop it up into the scenes, yeah? And then go through and basically just remove the stuff that you don't need. It doesn't add value, yeah? If it doesn't show the user where they're going to, if it doesn't show the user how the app's behaving, you don't necessarily need it. If it's not your main feature, leave it out, yeah? Okay, and if it's too long, just cut the feature all completely. So if you've got like 2 main features in your app, just show those 2 features. You don't have to pack everything in, right? Because I guess it's the difference between doing a good video and just showing a whole slideshow of every particular screen that you built, right? You might be proud of them, but the user doesn't know what they're seeing, right? They just see this cavalcade of stuff going past, right? So it's best slow it down, show particular features, show what they do for you. Yeah? Editing voiceovers. Okay, so one of the things is when someone's using the App Store, they might have it on silent, the volume down, so you shouldn't rely on a voiceover communicating the information. It should all be visual. But if you do a voiceover, you can add it as a supplement, right? One of the things is a great feature is having text-to-speech, right? So when you're thinking about adding a voiceover, if you put in the text, it can convert it into the speech, and you know how long that speech takes to say, right? If you're able to put that into video, then you're able to kind of work out, okay, that content that I've got to that scene. And so what you do is you try to edit your content, edit your words to sync up with the scenes that you're showing. So it's a bit of a thing. You can extend the scenes a little bit longer, or you can get your text and cut out words. Rule 1 about editing, do you really need the word? If you can get rid of it, get rid of it. Yeah? Voice talent, I don't know about you, but I don't like listening to myself. So it's probably better to have an actor or a friend do the voiceover. Because, you know, when you're sitting there editing it, listening to it, it's really, it's not a creative space to be in. And always have a script. So if you do get voice talent and you do have a friend or a loved one or a partner and you want to value that relationship, give them a script and just read them off the script, okay? Editing sound, probably not an area that I'm strong in. I'm pretty tone deaf, but if you do put music, don't make it overpowering, just a small, subtle sort of music, but something that has a tempo that kind of fits with the way that your screens work, right? So when you look at your video, look at what the video is, and then start trawling around things like Sound Jungle and that sort of stuff, for stuff that kind of matches that tempo, right? It just sort of adds to the experience. But remember, they might have it on mute, so all that good work for nothing, right? So maybe this is cream on top. Yep. Okay, that was the movie process. So how much does it cost? That's always the question. So to just give you a bit of an idea, for that little caravan app that I showed you, I actually sat down and I did the demo video and timed all the activities. So it took me about 30 minutes to sit there, work out the features that were the most important, what bits I wanted to show, and kind of write a bit of a script and a budget for it, right? After you do the filming, you don't really follow the script, but do the filming based on the script, right? Next thing was about the filming. Now, it took me about 30 minutes to do the filming for it, right? It was only two and a half minutes of video, yep, but it's like you try something, you screw it up, you do it again. To get a nice kind of take, took around about 30 minutes of effort, yep. So just stuff like, you know, my little app, you have to have two devices set up together, and then I watched the video and it had my name on the iPhone. So I thought, okay, I'll change it to my iPhone instead of, you know, so little details like that. That's all setting the scene for you getting recording, right? So that's setting the sets, yeah? The first edit took about 45 seconds to cut it down to that. So I just got rid of all the stuff from that 2 minutes and a half down to about 45 seconds and breaking the clips into the sort of scenes and getting kind of a layout. Yep. Then the second edit, well, that took about an hour and a half, right? So I was just sitting there cutting stuff off, looking and watching how long it took. Yeah, working out what the music was like, those sorts of things. Probably an hour and a half to get that sort of stuff. So all in all, about two and a half hours to get that 30 seconds of video in that particular case, right? Pretty simple app, but if you have more content, lots of photos, that sort of stuff, you're going to do a lot more work getting your sets together, yep. But all that work works really well because you're going to use that for all your screenshots in the App Store as well, yep. And last words of advice. Well, no apps, no CocoaHeads would be good without some code, right? So if you're going to write a killer app, thought about the App Store video first, all right, before you start coding much more. It's really interesting because it sets a lens of how you look at your video. If you kind of look at your app and you say, what would the video look like? How would I show that feature? And if you can't kind of visualize it yourself, probably need to recode some things or think about your design a little bit more. So I think whilst I've sort of presented it, you build your app and then you do your video, actually they're a lot more intermeshed. If you're doing it for yourself, you can actually do, part of the design work is kind of saying, well, what does that feature look like from a video perspective? Because ultimately that's what the customer's going to see. So it's a good thing to actually think about doing a video earlier because it goes, okay, that feature sounded pretty good, but it's really complicated to show and they would need to know far too much for this thing to be effective. Yeah? Okay, and that's it. Thank you very much. 13 minutes, is that enough?
Thank you so much, Mike.
Thank you.
Yeah, I gotta admit that personally,
on?
there has been lots of times that I download random apps on App Store or it's from Instagram apps just because they show a video how the screen flows, a beautiful animation, and how the feature works as well. So if you're looking to boost up your sales, your app sales, I mean, you know what to do. Yeah, so for our next presentation, it's gonna be by Zoe and Carl from Redbubble. It's about recommendation at Redbubble. So a little bit about Zoe and Carl. Carl is a data scientist working in Redbubble for 2 years, and he's currently working at search and recommendations. Zoe has worked as an iOS developer at Redbubble for 2 years, but at the same time, she also has built an interest in backend development, and also she has recently been working on developing a common backend for all Redbubble mobile applications. So this talk will be about how Redbubble recommends artwork to users according to what they are interested in. So please welcome Carl and Zoe.
Hello. Start this one. Hi everyone. My name's Carl. I'm one of the data scientists at Redbubble, and this is Zoe, one of the iOS developers. And we're here today. We're going to have a bit of a talk about how Redbubble produces recommendations for users. So first up, a bit about what Redbubble is, because I think that might be a bit of a dark horse. So Redbubble was created in 2007 with the purpose of bringing more creativity into the world. We do that by enabling independent artists to be able to sell their work and earn a crust off it, basically. So helping people do what they love and earn a living from it. So ostensibly, we're a print-on-demand marketplace, two-sided. So one, we allow artists to host their portfolios on the site, and we allow customers to choose artworks from artist portfolios and then pick them to be printed on a certain product, whether it's a sticker, a t-shirt, cushion, leggings, and then we manage the fulfillment and the shipping of those products as well. So end to end, we manage the entire production and purchase process, and the artists and the customers are sort of on either end of that. We have over 1 million artists in our marketplace. We also have those artists producing over 24 million works in our portfolio. So there is a significant amount of content there. And those works are in turn available on over 70 products. So we've got, this incredible array of, 24 million works, 70 products. We also have 3 offices around the world. The head office here in Melbourne. We have an office in San Francisco and one in Berlin. We have over 200 employees, and of those we have 7 mobile developers and 9 data scientists, of which we are. In particular, which I think is very relevant to this meetup, we have an iOS app. So it was released in 2016, and it is localized in 4 languages, the main EU ones, so English, French, German, and Spanish. We have 70% of our users coming from the US, so we have a big US population there of our app users, and also 70% of our users are female. It's not a complete intersection of those 2 groups. It's just, there's a mix of those 2. We have men in the US as well, and we've got a reasonably high review rating on the App Store as well. So it's nice to see good design being appreciated. And we have also just released an Android app. It's only a few weeks old, and we're gradually adding as we go, but the iOS app is the more mature of the 2 offerings. So first up, recommendation. So Netflix always has this slide whenever they do a presentation. It's, can you spot where recommendations are used? So I thought I'd simplify things and just draw red boxes around all of the spots we do it. We do it a fair few places. So you'll see 3 experiences on this one. So going from left to right, we have our Explore homepage. This is all on the web version. So we have our Explore homepage on the left. In the middle, we have our product page. In this case, it is a t-shirt with Ice Bear on it, by the looks of things. And on the right-hand side, we have our search results page. And so all of these are sort of, we do large-scale recommendation of big results, and then we also do very micro recommendations in some cases. So I'll go into depth on, the different scale we do later. Why do we do recommendation? I think that's one of the key questions here. And it's basically because we have a lot of content. So when you multiply 24 million artworks, 70 products, and up to 20 product configurations, you think, it's tricky to recommend, 33.6 billion different combinations to users, and users have a hard time evaluating all of that stuff manually. So we'd like to help them and actually select the stuff that we think is most relevant for them, whether it's changing search results slightly to promote stuff I think will be interested specifically for them, or if it's things that we've looked at their behaviour and we think that there are certain works which are extremely relevant to their interests, we want to be able to serve that content to those users to help them complete their journeys. And so you end up with this case where we have all of these nouns. We have users, we have artworks, we have products, we have queries, we have tags on artworks. The idea is you can ostensibly recommend using any of one of those nouns, recommend it to any one of the other nouns. So, for example, you might want to recommend an artwork to a user, or in some cases you might want to recommend a user to a user if you consider an artist one of our users on the site. And so we have this also, a very large nexus of things we should possibly create recommendations for. And so we try to work out different spaces on the site to be able to place these in front of users to optimize their experience. And so you see a few examples of it here. So you might have an artwork and a product in combination. So in the case here, we have BMO saying, "Give me your bank account" on the mug. And in turn, we identify that, this person's likely to want Adventure Time mugs. So we might recommend other Adventure Time mugs in this case. Similarly, if someone searches for fish stationery and a work comes back for that, we try to work out what product is best suited to that work, or what product is most likely to get conversion for that work. And in some cases, we use recommendation to enhance other recommendation. So if we recommend an artist to a user, we might try and find the best work for that artist that we think the user will identify as sort of a splash for their portfolio. And we loosely label these as experiences. So we have primary recommendation experiences and secondary experiences. By primary, we're talking about recommendation being the sole reason for a user interacting with content. So they come to a location, they are aware they are engaging with a recommendation, and we evaluate the success or failure of that recommendation with just direct engagement with that. So if we go back a few slides, so we can see on the left our Explore feature, or Explore page, is one case where we just provide recommendations for users and rely on them engaging with that content and hopefully successfully engaging with that content. If they follow on for a purchasing journey after that, that's cherry on top, but that's not part of the consideration there. In combination with that, we also have secondary experiences. Now, these are recommendation experiences that we try to enhance another experience. That might be the case with search, which is primary and information retrieval experience. We might have recommendation to be able to pick the best product for every work appearing in search results. And so, we base that on a strategy of maybe certain works convert better on certain products or some just look rubbish on others. We don't want to necessarily get those combinations, so we use that recommendation strategy to be able to enhance a search experience. And we base our recommendations off this loose strategy of exploration versus exploitation. So this is the idea that we want to balance the idea of users encountering new content to sort of broaden their horizons and discover new things. We want to balance that with making sure that we're recommending the right things for users. So it's this, the exploitation in this case is a user's history with us to be able to identify things that we think are exceptionally relevant to them. And we enhance that with exploration by recommending them things that we think might only be possibly tangentially related. And the reason we do this is because if you funnel a user down either path of those exclusively, they will either end up with random noise in the case of exploration, or in the case of exploitation, you will recommend them things that don't break them outside of their mold, and there'll be a very same repetitive experience that doesn't really give them a great on-site experience. And so you need to be able to balance those two to give a successful overall experience. And so how do we do that? And so this is a very abridged version of the architecture that we use to provide these recommendations. So on the left we have the iOS app, and I'll go through sort of a brief, see if I can get the laser pointer going. It's not really visible, is it? Okay. So on the left, we have our iOS app, which calls the mobile backend, which does a whole bunch of composition. So one of the calls that it makes to an external service is to our recommendation service, which is actually consumed by a whole bunch of other services at Redbubble. That recommendation service then, being provided with a given user, will request recent user interactions. It then uses those interactions to pass to a very long-term, well, not very long-term, long-term trained machine learning model. And it uses them as seed input. And with using those seeds for the user, it will retrieve a set of works that it thinks are relevant to those recent user events. It will then back up the chain. It will compile additional information about those potential works that the user might be interested in and pass it back to the mobile backend. Mobile backend then does additional hydration of that content to be able to represent it in a visual capacity. And then we pass that back to the iOS app, which renders it and delivers it to the user. We also have any interaction the user will have with that work, whether it's a favorite, it's a click, it's a purchase, an add to cart. We'll send that live to our user interactions service. We'll also send it long-term via Firebase to store for retraining the model. We actually retrain our machine learning models about once a week. And so that we find that is a reasonable to be able to include new works that are published by artists, as well as to incorporate new behaviours from users as well. And so via this way, we're able to balance sort of short-term versus long-term behaviour, which gives a good bit of versatility. So one, this architecture allows new applications to use existing recommendations. We don't have to, provide a specific adapter for every new service that might want to use it. It also allows us to quickly just add new recommendation experiences inside our recommendation service. And also, if we want to change the entire architecture underlying this to a different recommendation model, i.e. maybe we want to move away from collaborative filtering user content-based strategy, we could just swap it out under the covers and then no consuming applications would be any the wiser. Users might have a few different opinions though. And it also allows us to run A/B tests without any of our consuming applications knowing about it, which is a fantastic feature. And so we can tweak things to be able to optimally recommend things to different users on different platforms. And it gives us the ability to also reel it back if it's not a good strategy to do it that way. From the applications that use our recommendation service, it's also sort of an inverse benefit. So any application that comes along that wishes to use it only needs to know the context of a user and a given recommendation experience. Then they can use that to enhance an existing experience that they have, whether it's search, whether it's a product purchasing experience, or whether it's checkout even. And it also means that multiple different applications or different parts of the site can use same recommendations for different purposes, which is a really nice sort of incorporation of that agnosticity of the recommendation architecture. And now I'm going to pass it over to Zoe to show you how the iOS app incorporates all this recommendation.
So before I go into how we deliver the recommendation experience into the iOS app, I want to give a live demo first to give you some ideas of how it looks. So this is the Explore feed in the app. And on the top, it's the recommended artist to me because I'm logged in here. So when you click on the artist, you can see some of the artworks and have a rough idea of if you like or not. You can follow or actually go to see the detail of this artwork. The second part is recommended artworks. So currently we are running an experiment of showing it in a vertical way or in a horizontal carousel. The next part is recently viewed. That's not a part of recommendation. That's just the view in history. And the part after it, the nature wall art you might like. That's the recommend topic plus product. can click on one of them and actually go to see the detail of the product. And the last part in Explore Feed is the recommended topic. When you click on one of them, it will do a search for you. So this is the primary recommendation experience. So we also have secondary recommendation experience when you go to the search results page of a type. So this content is all personalized. So everyone click into the same product type will get different search results. Also, if you go into a product page, you will get more recommendations at the bottom, which is more like this. So this is recommended based on your the current artwork you are looking for. Yeah, that's a live demo. Let's go back to the presentation. How we actually deliver the recommendation experience into the app. So as you can see, Explore is used as the home page of the, and it's a starter of discovery journey. It provides multiple sets of experiences, and it's available for anonymous users and members. As the architecture diagram Carl has showed you, we have a backend service in between our mobile apps and the other backend services. It's our mobile BFF. For recommendations, what it does is it makes a synchronized calls to recommendation service, get back all the sets of recommendations, and then go out to other backend services to fetch the data we need to be able to display the recommendation in the UI, and then stitch the response together, deliver to front end. That's not the only thing it does. It also determines the order of the recommendations, the content of the recommendations. Also, it does feature toggling and lightweight experiment. It also does localization for the app. So in the app side, I'm not going to show you code because it's a pretty common setup. But our goal to build this recommendation experience in the app is to make it as dumb as possible. So it's totally data-driven. So the UI is driven by the content coming back from BFF. We built some dynamic sections and real UI components to be able to render the UI based on the data it's being given. One of the use case is topic product. So what is a topic product recommendation? Topic, for example, in the screenshot nature, I think it's selected based on your history or your any searches on the site or in the app. Also, the product type is based on your interests as well. So we combine these two together and get a set of products we think you might like. So it's displayed in a horizontal carousel here. The title of the section is automatic generated in BFF, also localized in BFF. Also, how many sets of product recommendations we want to show in the app is fully configurable from the BFF as well. I think that's it from the technical side. We also want to introduce how does mobile and data science work together in Redbubble. So the day-to-day life for in iOS is so we have a cross-functional team. We have back-end developers, front-end developers, designers, and product managers sitting in the same team. We do feature ideation, fortnightly planning and retro. We do feature delivery, bug smashing, and fortnightly release as well. That's pretty common for most of the places, I think. So for the iOS app, we use Swift plus GraphQL. For Android, it's Kotlin plus GraphQL. Mobile BFF is built in Elixir, and analytics is file-based to BigQuery. Next, I will hand it back to Carl to talk more about data science.
Thanks. So yeah, as you might have been able to guess from the architecture diagram, we're kind of full stack data scientists at Redbubble. So day to day we do a lot of prototyping, so validating whether a given enhancement to a feature or different part of the site has legs. We'll try out a machine learning model to be able to address that feature. And then we'll be able to, once we think we can move that into production, we will build the data pipelines to be able to serve the data necessary to deliver that experience. We will edit the applications to enhance, to add the new features, and we'll also occasionally do a little bit of front-end development as well. We also collaborate a lot with other teams in the company to be able to bring our experiences to other parts and other applications. So our collaboration with mobile is one excellent example of that. In the future, we're thinking of doing a lot of stuff together, specifically with mobile. So we're looking at personalized layouts for users to be able to, give them only the features that they're really interested in. We want to increase the amount of recommendations we deliver to users and start enhancing other parts of both the website and the mobile app. And we also want to start delivering more complex experimentation architecture. So experimenting with multiple variants at the same time, being able to, look at experiments in combination and isolation, some really nice stuff around that. So yeah, just in summing up, we deliver multiple recommendation experiences both as a primary focus as well as to enhance other features of the site. And part of that is delivering recommendation to the mobile BFF, which is able to compose those recommendations into reusable front-end delivery. So it's a very nice, seamless flow through when it works. Finally, please get in touch. And we'd love to hear from you. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Carl and Zoe. So we are going to have our first break soon. It's actually our only break, but use this time for toilet break, get more pizzas, or drink more beers or water. And this is also a good chance for you to ask Mike about producing videos for App Store, or even Carl and Zoe about recommendation architecture. And we'll be back in 10 to 15 minutes. Hey everyone. Hello. I'm going to start. Hello. Hey everyone. Hey everyone. We are going to start our presentation again. Please take a seat. Everyone, please take a seat. We're going to start again.
But when you
Okay, sure.
when you start speaking, I'll hear you.
Yep.
Just plug it in somewhere. That's
I think. There we go.
So, for our next presentation, it's going to be a lightning talk. That means it's going to be shorter than the talks that we had before. This lightning talk will be presented by Vignesh. Vignesh is a junior iOS dev, and he has background in automation engineering. Currently, he's working on his app while he's looking for his next role. So, please welcome Vignesh.
oh, it's a clicker. Click it. It's fine. It's fine. Okay, and let's get this started up. Okay, and I'll just press the play button.
Right. Yep. Hey everyone, so for those of you who don't know me, my name is Vignesh, and I'll be talking about UI testing in iOS. So without further ado, let's dive in. So the points that I'll be covering today, I'll just give you a brief background around UI testing, how to set them up and write them, and some tips and tricks around how to make them more reliable. So, what are UI tests? Well, these are high-level integration tests that test the interactions between UI components, and these tests assert on the results of those interactions. So why write UI tests, given that they can be flaky? Well, they're a good way to test both existing and new features from high level, and they're also a good way to cut down on manual QA by automating away some of your happy paths and some of your edge cases as well. So in testing philosophy, there's something known as a testing pyramid. So ideally you're going to be covering as much as you can with your unit tests, and your UI tests sit near the top of this pyramid. So what that means is that you're not going to have as many UI tests ideally, but you use them to cover the flows, interactions of an app. Let's get to setting up some UI tests. Now, the app that I'm going to be writing a UI test for is none other than our CocoaHeads app. Now, it exists, yes. It still builds, and it still works. So it's a pretty basic app. It just has a table view of upcoming events, and when you tap on an event, it goes to a detail page of that event. So for those of you who haven't set up a UI test in an existing project, I've gone ahead and recorded a little video on how to do that. So I'm going to add a testing target to Melbourne CocoaHeads. Yep. So I'm going to add a new UI testing target. Everything looks okay in here as well. And there you go. It was pretty straightforward to add a UI testing file that contains some stubs in there for you. It is also possible to create new projects with UI testing bundled in. So let's go ahead and write our UI test up now. So before you write UI test, ideally you want to set out what steps you want to take in your UI test before you write them. So in our case, we're going to find the first event row, Then we're going to tap on that event once we find it, and then we want to assert whether the web view in that detail page exists. Now, in our case, we're not going to be so focused on whether that web view loads up the content successfully. I just want to verify the layout when I go to the detail page. So the first thing we're going to do is find this event row. Now, we're just going to query for that event row in the accessibility hierarchy. And if we can't find that event row within 10 seconds, we're going to fail the test. So that is something you do in UI test a fair bit as well. You want to guard against edge cases as much as possible. And so once we find that first event row, it's a pretty straightforward step next. We just tap on that event row. And then after that, we're going to assume that we've gone to the detail page, and then we're going to try and find that web view that we were talking about earlier. And once we've done that, we assert that the web view exists. So now that we've got everything set up, let's see how it runs in Melbourne CocoaHeads app. Yeah, so it's great. Our test successfully passed, which is what you want when you write a UI test. So, now having written UI tests across a few projects now, the thing I found myself spending the most amount of time on was just getting these tests to pass and fail for the right reasons, to be more deterministic. So, here's a few tips and tricks in making sure that you can get to that end outcome as well of UI tests passing and failing for the right reasons and not being too flaky. So the first one, the UI test recorder. Now, you want to use, it's a great place to start if you haven't done much UI testing and if you're spinning up a new UI test suite. It's a great way to also get a feel for the accessibility hierarchy of your app. So what I find myself doing is that whenever I use a recorder, I start things up and then I factor out the code that's generated as I build up the test suite. Now, just a forewarning that the auto-generated code does not always compile. So, and I strongly advise changing any code that interacts with the network in any way, because any code that does that will be flaky in your UI tests. Now, the next thing, it's going to be a bit controversial, avoiding the use of cross-platform testing frameworks. So, in case you don't, for those of you that aren't aware, there are many cross-platform solutions out there that try to have one set of tests against both iOS and Android apps. The issue I have with those kind of frameworks is that they add another level of abstraction above XE UI test. And I felt that would make debugging these UI tests much harder than what they have to be, and they already can be pretty hard to debug as it is. Just a note that this is just my 2 cents. I do know of companies that do use these frameworks successfully, so yeah, your mileage just may vary on that. Now, accessibility identifiers. Now, in a lot of Apple's WWDC videos around UI testing, you'll see a lot of code that looks like this. Now, the reason I don't like this code up here is because it's not very deterministic. You can't really tell whether the element that you're hitting against this query actually exists or not. It's not. It just finds the first element that it finds in the hierarchy. And in this particular case up here too, in our case, referring back to the earlier example in CocoaHeads, if this event does not exist anymore for whatever reason, this test will fail even though there's still elements that are still valid in that table. So what you can do to manage that problem is to set up accessibility identifiers on all the UI components that you need, and then you can make this code look more like this. Now, this is much better because this query up here is only going to query against elements with this particular identifier, and it's much more programmatic, it's more deterministic, and it's a clearer way to make sure that you're hitting what you want to find in your UI tests. So One thing that can picture cropping up as well is these accessibility identifiers, accessibility labels, and accessibility hits. What's the difference with these three? That's a lot of accessibility stuff mentioned just there. So labels, they are what is read out when a user taps on a UI component and it's read out by VoiceOver. That's what a label does. A hint is an additional description that you can add to that label if you want more information when the user taps that component. From identifiers, from what I've read, they are geared towards UI automation, so using them shouldn't get in the way of the accessibility functionalities of an app. And yes, I recommend using them everywhere. So, it's inevitable when you're running UI tests that there's going to be some sort of networking or animation delays. Now, the issue with any test that hits these areas of these apps is that sometimes when they fail, if you run them again, they'll pass. So that's a classic case of a UI test being quite flaky. So what you can do when you run into an element that depends on a network, you can use these wait for existence statements. So what these do is that once you've queried for an element, you can simply wait while this element's being found in the hierarchy, and it'll wait for up to a certain amount of time in seconds that you define. The awesome thing about these statements is that once this statement finds that an element exists, it will keep on going with the UI test. It won't just sit there waiting around for this element to be found. So it's much better than using sleep statements. I'd recommend using these anywhere where you have any sort of network or animation delays. And you can think of them as smarter sleep statements. They're just there to manage that aspect there for you. And while we're on networks, I recommend looking into some sort of backend. I found when I was writing UI tests, the biggest cause of UI test failures of any kind was that the network was either too slow or returned an error, and that would cause UI tests to fail. So I do recommend looking into options to manage that network backend or network calls for you. Now, there are many ways to do this. It ranges from anything like mocking your entire network layer in the app. You can also set up mock environments in CI. So you can have a box up in the cloud that's dedicated just for UI tests. Whatever approach you end up going with in the end, like the end goal is to make sure that any network call in UI tests are always hitting the same environment. Like you don't want this environment to change too much when you're running UI tests. It just keeps the whole thing like almost like a sealed box. Like that, it's deterministic and it keeps the UI tests happy. So just to sum things up, there are benefits to writing UI tests, and there are pathways, believe it or not, to writing non-flaky UI tests as far as possible. And just a little tidbit about myself, I am looking for my next role. So if you or anyone that you know of is looking for an iOS developer or an automation engineer, well, feel free to have a chat. And that wraps up my talk for tonight.
Okay. Thank you so much, Vignesh. Fun fact about me, I actually do have some automation engineer experience as well. I do totally agree that when you do UI tests, you should avoid having a network call or even animation, because those two things can break your UI tests. So that was our last talk for tonight. And before we wrap up, I would like to thank our major sponsor. First is Cognizant. And our silver sponsors, Domesticat, Ebree Apps, and also Latitude Financial. And lastly, our venue sponsor, YBF Ventures. So yeah, I would like to thank everyone for coming as well. And if you would like to get more updates about our meetup, just follow our social media: Slack, Twitter, YouTube. Oh, by the way, this talk for the night will be recorded. It's actually recorded and will be uploaded to our YouTube channel as well. So please do check them out. And yeah, and I would like to remind you again for our upcoming events. We do have Hack Night, Drinks Night, and our NS Breakfast, and lastly, CocoaHeads Christmas Party, joined with GDG Group. And yeah, now we're going to wrap up and going to the pub soon. Thank you so much. If you see any rubbish, any empty bottles, please put them away, and pizza boxes as well. Yeah, don't leave any rubbish behind. Thank you.